Keep him here. He's great. Well, we just came through the Easter season, and we're supposed to be confused. We're supposed to be unsettled, unsure of our footing, unsure of ourselves. That's what really it's supposed to be like this week or 2 or 3 following Easter. We're supposed to wonder, what just happened? What was that all about? And that's why we get these stories in the first few weeks after Easter of Peter and the disciples and Paul later, who themselves are confused and unsettled. We're supposed to be like a new job. Anybody here ever start a new job? Maybe you just started one recently, I don't know. But do you know what it's like when you go and you start a new job? And like in the old place, you knew where everything was, you knew where all the pens and pencils were, and you knew where the right things were that you needed for your job, and you knew the rules, both the ones that were written down and the ones they don't tell you about till later, you know. And you get to a new job, and it's like, I'm uncomfortable. For the first week or 2 or month, I think. It's like that. That's the way it's supposed to be after Easter. It's like if you fall in love. Anybody here, are you currently or have you ever been in love? If you came here with someone else, the answer is yes. Guys, that was for you. You know how when you're in love, you sort of get like a little woozy, you know, sort of unsettled, and you don't know. You're kind of unsure of yourself. And I know some of the guys are like, it's not that what it is. You know? But the women, I'll tell you what, your wife, your whatever, your spouse has a different. In fact, she's probably not even thinking about you, just so you know. She's probably thinking about someone a long time ago. But anyway, love sets you off your game, a little bit. It's like that. You know how if you've been married 20 years, 30 years, longer, whatever, been with somebody that long, it starts to get more routine. You kind of know all the moves. You know everything to do, right? This is like the first time you go out. You're supposed to feel a little bit unsettled. There are 2 great examples from our readings today. I want to talk first about the gospel reading. The disciples in the gospel reading. Now this is in the Gospel of John, where just last week we heard this great stories about on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, right? And the disciples are gathered, right? And Jesus comes and shows up. And then he comes up a week later when Thomas is there. So these are right away after the resurrection. Yeah? And he comes in these post-resurrection appearances. Now, today's reading, the disciples gathered at the Sea of Tiberias, or Galilee, up here, is 75 miles north. So you know it's taken some time. They've returned home, basically, to where they were, and they've gone about their lives. They're back doing what they used to do. Peter says, hey, listen, I don't know about all this, I'm going fishing. That's what the text says. Peter says, I'm going fishing. And they go, okay, well, we're not doing anything else, we'll go with you, right? And they go out fishing. And they're fishing, and they're not catching anything, right? Their old job, the way they used to do it, is not working so well for them. In the post-resurrection, this is where I'm staying, stay with me here. Post-resurrection, their lives aren't working the way that they used to work. They're not as good at it. I don't know why. But they say, you know, we fished all night. They fished all night long and didn't have any fish. Not one. These are professional fishermen. And then somebody, the beloved disciple in this text, that could be John, could be somebody else, don't worry about that, but they call it the beloved disciple, says to Peter and the others, hey, well, first of all, somebody's walking along and says, hey, have you caught any fish? And they're like, no! And the figure walking on the shore says, because about 100 yards out there, they can talk to each other, says, well, why don't you throw out the net on the other side of the boat? Okay, they do, and what happens? Lots of fish. It says 153. Now, don't worry about that number. It doesn't really mean anything. It just means a lot of fish. Yeah? They had none. Jesus says, hey, fish on the other side? They do. Now, the beloved disciple recognizes, says, hey, that's Jesus. Now, Peter says what? I'm going. What does Peter do? He gets dressed. It says he's naked. I don't know why he was fishing naked. I have no idea why maybe it was a thing. I have no idea. It says, I can tell you as a modern fisherman, this doesn't happen anymore. It's too dangerous on many levels. I will just tell you, we do not do this anymore. But in this day, and maybe it just meant he had his underwear on, it doesn't matter. But the text says naked, it does. Peter says, he gets dressed and then jumps in the water. Again, a little, but anyway, he goes in and they have breakfast together, all these fish. And then he commissions Peter. He says, listen, do you love me? And Peter says, yes, of course. Feed my sheep. Do you love me? The second time, yes, tend my lambs. Do you love me? Yes, feed my sheep. Okay. So they go back to their lives. It's not the same. Post-resurrection, post-Easter, right? Things aren't working well. Jesus appears to them and reassigns them. So here's the pattern. Post-resurrection, post-Easter. Here's the pattern. This is where you're supposed to be. Confusion, community, commissioning, and clarity. John, does that take you back to your old evangelical days? A 4-point sermon, everything starts with C, right? Right? This would be a great sermon for, like, Monument Bible or something. Confusion, community, commission, and clarity. That's the order. We're in the confusion phase right now, post-Easter. Now, let's talk about Paul. Paul in Acts. Now, this is, so if this was a little while later when John and the disciples were up there, this is several years later. Paul in Acts. It's probably 3 or 4 or 5 years later. We don't know for sure. But several years later, these same disciples who were confused and eating breakfast with Jesus on the shore have now begun a movement within the Jewish community of Christ-following Jews. And Paul, a Pharisaic Jew who did not know Jesus in the flesh, he was not one of those disciples on the boat, is out saying, not on my watch. You're not changing my religion on my watch. We're Jews. I don't know what you're talking about the Messiah. That's not the Messiah. He's not coming back. None of them raised. No way. And so Paul goes around and he's persecuting these same people. It's 3 years later. Okay. He's on his way to go persecute some more. And what happens? He has his Easter experience. Right? He has his resurrection appearance of Jesus Christ. Just like we had over the weekend. Or last week, 2 weeks ago. Right? Paul has his Easter experience, and he becomes not only confused, but literally blind. And he needs someone else. The funny thing about this is God could have said, like a magician, who's that famous magician that's on TV all the time? I can't think of his name. He's really good. I can't think of his name. But God could have said, okay, Paul, I'm going to knock you off the horse now, and reach in your back pocket, and pull it out, and there's what you're supposed to do next. Paul will be like, how did that get there? That's not what happens. Paul needs somebody else. Jesus, God, has already worked it out, so a guy named Ananias is in on this. Ananias doesn't want anything to do with Paul. Why? Because Ananias is a Christ-following Jew, and he knows that Paul has been out killing and persecuting Christ-following Jews. So Ananias says, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with him. God says, yes, you are. Go down to the corner there, and you're going to find this guy named Saul. Right? And I've got plans for both of you. And so without Ananias, maybe we don't have Paul. And without Paul, maybe we don't have Christ. Right? Christ as we know it, the Christian church. So they need each other. That's my point. And my point is, Paul follows the same pattern. Confusion, community, commissioning, and then clarity. No one is alone in their post-Easter experience of Christ. You're not alone. Right? No one, not Abraham, not Elijah, not Moses in the Old Testament, Peter, disciples, martyrs, saints, God's people throughout the ages are never alone when they experience God. That's my point. So, we just came through Easter. Did we? Did we? Are you asleep? The back rows asleep. I'll talk to you guys. We just came through Easter. Was it a powerful experience for you? Did you have sort of an upsetting time? Did it give you some unrest? Did it confuse you? Was it powerful enough that you went, oh my gosh, what's that about? Maybe it wasn't this Easter. Maybe it was an Easter a long time ago. Sometime you've had that experience. Did anything happen for you this Easter? Were you unsettled or confused? If so, you're in the right place. I just don't want you to go off and then wonder by yourself. You're in the right place. You have found your community. If this is your first time here, or your 1,000th time here, you found your way here. And it's no accident that you're here. That's what I want you to think about. I think God called you here to help with the confusion that comes with a Christ experience. Because guess what? You were definitely called, and you have definitely been commissioned. You have. Do you know what your mission is? Do you know what your ministry is? Mentally, not physically, mentally, everyone who knows precisely what their Christ mission is, raise your hands, mentally. And if you don't know, keep your hands down, mentally. And since I can discern spiritual things, there aren't very many hands up right now. Most of us struggle. We're like, yes, okay, Jesus, I'm in. Now what? Most of us are there. And here's what I want you to know. You're not alone. If you're looking for clarity, you're not alone. Any experience of God is confusing. And confusion leads us naturally to community. And commissioning is part of the experience, and clarity comes over time. It doesn't happen the first day. So if you are confused, and I hope you are, and if you are unsettled, and I really hope you are, we all are in that same place. Right? Keep coming back, is what I say. Because I think if we keep coming together and asking questions and serving others and seeking God, it will eventually become clear what we're to do. And I say, let's discover our mission and our call together. We can't do it alone. We need each other because God's people have always needed each other to make sense of their lives.